I come home from my job. I had a hard day at the office, dealing with a bunch of rubber snakes. One of the kids is in the driveway. He's shooting skeet with my rifle. He has your mother's eyes. I think he should give them back. Hi there, boys and girls, men and women, friend and foe, everybody who's watching and those who are just listening, whether you're around town or around the globe. It's a beautiful evening here in Houston, Texas. It's the 26th of March in the year 2015 for historians looking back on the archive here. I'm Paul Colby, your host on the Public Affairs Show for the upteenth and a half time, and I'm going to bring you what I always bring you, a look at what's going on all around the place. We're going to cover a lot of topics, but we're not going to focus on what you've already heard on TV, on the radio, in the newspaper. We're going to focus on the parts that maybe you didn't hear about yet, because that's the service we provide when we get together with you here on the air and shake hands and rattle bracelets and drink our cup of coffee or our ice cold beer. Anyway, it's springtime here and probably wherever you are, if you're in the northern hemisphere anyway. And what happens during springtime? Well, lots of stuff does, and that's where we're going to start our discussions tonight, because spring is busting out all over, not necessarily in my garden yet, or probably not necessarily in yours either, but having said that, all sorts of things are going on. We have college students on spring break. We have a rodeo going on in these parts here. And in addition to that, we have big events like March Madness, the college basketball tournament, taking center stage for the time being. So I want to look at all of these things, because it's as much as things stay the same, they're always changing. With respect to spring break for college students, that's a good place to get this discussion off the ground, because what's going on is that college students who aren't studying are going to the beach, just like they usually do. But what they're doing at the beach is a little different than what they normally do, you know, having a few beers and a lot of sex and getting rowdy, da-da-da-da-da. Well, things are changing these days. There's a new thing that's very popular among college students who are at the beach this year, and that is mooning dolphins. Yeah, maybe you didn't hear about it until just now, like I didn't hear about it until very recently. Some college kids were telling me about the Order of the Sacred Dolphin, or something like that. And as I tried to get to the bottom of what they were discussing, it turns out that I saw a news story. And sure enough, a lot of these college students are mooning dolphins right here on the beaches in Texas, up there in Florida, out in California. I guess it's a pretty harmless thing to do, but I'm not sure what they have in mind when they're doing it. As for all I know, it could be some sort of deeply spiritual experience. I've never tried it myself. But you know, college students, they're always looking for something new, and that seems to be what it is this year. Or that's one of the things it is this year. You know, I was at a local pub just a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this drawing on the bathroom wall. it was really arresting to me. I couldn't figure out what it was, and it looked to me like some guy with a shovel. He was planting donuts on the beach. I talked to some of the kids in the bar, and they said, sure enough, that's something that we do these days. We plant donuts at the beach. In my day, you would probably have been arrested for doing something like that. But yeah, I was out there this week looking at activities on the beach, and sure enough, shovels were everywhere and donuts were everywhere. I don't think you can grow a cash crop of donuts, so I'm not sure what they have in mind. And once again, it sounds pretty harmless to me, but I guess it sounds serious to certain agencies of the government. In particular, I'm thinking of the National Security Agency. My staff, you know how vigorously they work on my behalf, and what they can dig up things that people don't even know exist. Well, the National Security Agency apparently is keeping close tabs on this donut planting phenomenon. Why, I don't know. Why, I don't know. But anyway, there's donuts being planted. I think it could be cult-inspired, you know. I think it could be something having to do with a paleo diet and needing food that's hundreds of years old or thousands of years old or something like that. Anyway, they're doing it. Whatever it is they're doing. Now, another thing that is being done by college students going to the beach for spring break, these college students are going to a pretty high-class beach. I'm talking about the Virgin Islands, not just necessarily here on a Texas beach, but going down to where it's really groovy. In the Virgin Islands, I didn't know anything about this. College students can get a pretty good ride down there, a free ride, I want to say, because they go down there and do jury duty, and they're taken care of. They're having a vacation while they're working. Now, why would something like that even be going on, you have to wonder. Well, as best I can tell, and once again, I sent the staff out to do some research on this, and the conclusion that we've come to preliminarily is that we actually, in this country, are prosecuting white-collar criminals. We are prosecuting them, but there's an agreement in place, a sort of a gentleman's agreement, and that is that we don't want to be prosecuting them right here in full view, so we do all of this kind of dirty trial work over in the Virgin Islands. And we get college students to sit on the jury, I guess, because the white-collar criminals think they'll get a better outcome that way. That's all I can tell. Anyway, that's what I think. If I find out more, I'll let you know about it. But so much for spring break. So much for spring break. Another big event, of course, is the rodeo in town here in Houston over the last couple of weeks. And rodeos are always a big adventure, but like every other entertainment sort of venue, the rodeo is always wanting to expand into new areas. And for example, this year, you'll notice that they've been offering these events I have never seen before. Bareback yodeling and bull whispering, the team tractor push, frog roping, and even nude barrel racing. Now, when I was out at the rodeo, I wanted to get some pictures, some video of this so that I could show you. Unfortunately, I thought I was getting real good coverage on this, but I don't have any video. But on the bareback yodeling, this is an event. As you might expect, it features some bareback riding, but yodeling at the same time. And apparently this is a challenging thing to do while you're riding bareback. I think we do have some audio, even though I don't have video. It might give you an idea. Do we have that audio? Yodel, yodel, oh, oh, whoa, 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 oh, oh, yodel. Yeah, so you can see not everyone is going to be able to do something as tricky as that. The people I watched were pretty good, but none of them could stay on the horse and yodel for more than about 10 seconds. So that might be something I'll practice in my backyard for next year's rodeo. Maybe I can be in the event. Bull whispering, I don't understand exactly what I mean, I don't see how they score it, but I did watch some of these guys come up and whisper to the bulls, and it looked like the bulls either didn't like what they were hearing or whatever. But like I say, I'm not sure how they pick a winner. I do have some audio of it, though. I can play you. This is a guy actually whispering to one of the bulls. Listen to this.
Bull, I'm going to tell you one more time. Put your hooves back on and get out there on the stage. We haven't got all day.
See what I mean? Most of the bulls didn't seem to enjoy being whispered to, but I guess it was pretty cinematic. I mean, the audience response to it was just a little bit short of overwhelming, but it was in the right direction. So I'm sure they're going to do this again. They might whisper to any number of animals. I don't have any video of the team tractor push, and I'm sorry about that, because you've seen tractor pulls before, but when they have a dozen or so guys trying to push it uphill, that is one entertaining event. And so was the frog roping, because, you know, when you're roping something big, no problem. It's just kind of, you know, I'm good with a lasso, I throw it out there, and the thing about the frogs, they move pretty fast, but they're tiny, squirmy little guys, you know, these, so, and another thing, I don't understand the scoring exactly, but I know that they deducted points when the riders accidentally stepped all over the frogs, you know, then their scores go down. But I think I could do the frog roping with enough practice. I've been, you know, chasing roaches around my house here the last couple of weeks, and so I have a feel for it. And finally, of course, we had that the nude barrel racing, and you've seen barrel racing before, and it was advertised as being nude barrel racing, but since the people are in the barrels, I couldn't actually tell, you know, very much of anything. I think they're just trying to make events more salacious, some of them, you know, kind of following the guidance of TV specials, you know, that are essentially salacious. But once again, I have some audio of one of these events. Maybe that'll throw some light on it in case you've not actually seen nude barrel racing. Can we play that for just a second?
Get your hands off of me. When we get out of this barrel, I'm going to slap you silly, you idiot.
Yeah, I could tell some of the people in the barrel were not working well together, if you want to put it that way. They seemed to be a little bit tense about what was going on and their role in all of it. Anyway, what can I say? The rodeo is always exciting, but for all of these reasons, it was much more exciting this year. And if you missed it, I'm sorry about that, and I wish I did have more video to show you all this exciting stuff. So, spring break for kids, rodeo for adults and children, and of course basketball fans are really in heaven right now because we've got March Madness going on. You have the best college basketball teams in the country getting together, starting with 64 of them, moving down the line until you've got the Final Four coming up in a couple of weeks. This this is a good tournament like they always are. You know, if you're a round ball fan, I'm sure you're enjoying it, but there's a couple of things you might not know or you might not have noticed. One is about the venues. For rounds 1 and 2, in case you didn't notice it because you were just watching it on TV, well, the whole thing was going on out at sea. In fact, it was going on aboard the ocean liner SS Rooster Money. Now, this is a really big vessel, the Rooster Money. I am told that it is so big that it's about the size of 4 football fields. And as a matter of fact, there are 2 football fields on it, along with, I think there was also, in addition to the basketball teams, there was a bunch of college students on spring break, because this is a great place from which to moon dolphins, you know. So anyway, on this large ship for rounds 1 and 2, all of the games were played there, and one of the things I found out is that they have lots of restaurants on the SS Rooster Money, including what is said to be the largest Canadian food buffet in these United States. I'll be dadgum. I was kind of in the mood for some Canadian food myself recently, and that's when I found out about it. But well, anyway, the first 2 rounds, like I say, were out at sea, but the next 2 rounds that are going on this week, those are going to be literally, excuse me, out of this world. And when I say out of this world, I mean on the International Space Station. You may not have noticed that this year, for example, the Professional Golfers Association has started holding some of their biggest tournaments up there in the sky, in orbit, on something even bigger than the Rooster Money. This International Space Station, a lot of people don't know that the space station is so big that it's about equal to 2 Pittsburghs. It's that big. Did you know that? Well, it is that big, and up there, March Madness rounds 3 and 4 are taking place at the moment, and I can hardly wait to see the results. And right at this point, I can't tell you where the Final 4 is going to be, but my staff is trying to find out, because right now it's considered a top secret where they're going with this. Now, as for the tournament itself, a lot of you, if you're working in a downtown office or any kind of large or medium to large office, I bet you've got some money in a pool. You looked at the bracket and you picked the winners, and you probably picked Kentucky and Duke and Arizona, whatever, and you're hoping that you're going to be the one to cash in when that bracket is finally filled out. But the big surprise for this year, to me anyway, was some of these schools that made it to the big tournament for the first time. And these are pretty small schools. For example, on one of the brackets here that just concluded, we had Bruno College. You may know Bruno College from some of the research projects they do. Bruno Community College, I should say. They didn't even have a basketball program this year until they signed up 5 more students, and it turned out to be a really great idea. Kanye East, what can I say about them? Kanye East says it all for themselves. I mean, and they say it pretty loudly. And then, of course, there was South Carolina University for Men, Boys, and Girls, Scumbag, some call it. And Scumbag pulled off a kind of surprise victory there against Kanye East. Now, the other new party on this bracket that played Bruno Community College, yeah, it says the NSA Junior College, but it's not really a college. Now, you know the National Security Agency has decided that not only are they going to listen to all of your phone calls and and God knows what else. They've decided now they need to be part of all American activities. So they have wormed their way into this this March Madness tournament, and a lot of us are pretty disgusted to have to watch these federal surveillance agents mess up a nice tournament like this. But all I can say is I'm glad that Bruno Community College showed them to the door. They're out of the tournament. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're out of the building. I mean, they're in this building tonight. They're probably in your living room or your kitchen or whatever. They're everywhere. But so anyway, I think that was a plus. It was a plus that we now have some new small schools making it into the big games like this. But there's some downsides, and one of the things that really irritated me is how advertising, seems to creep into almost all of our sporting events. In our baseball parks and our football stadiums, we have naming rights so that nothing is just called, such and such stadium anymore. It's got some corporate name on it. And when I was watching the basketball game the other day, I have to have an artist's conception of what I saw. There's some copyright issues here, but in one of the important games, you had people who didn't even have their school names on the jerseys anymore. They were selling their naming rights to, for example, the Donut Planter Incorporated firm. Yeah, Donut Planters. That sounds familiar. Anyway, advertising is one thing, but advertising on the back of somebody's jersey, I think that's getting to the point where we're just going to have to say no. Just stop it. That being said, they're sort of like in the context of the rodeo, adding new events for the for the March Madness games. They are trying some new things out just to make basketball more entertaining. And in fact, one of the games that's going on right now, I am told, is being played in total darkness, and I think we might have a live feed. Do we have a live feed for that we could show the people?
Whoa.
Well, I guess in total darkness you kind of lose something, but I guess both teams are at a disadvantage when it comes to a game like that. So in the end, it probably makes it more entertaining. But if you put down your beverage, it's, and you are in the space station watching the game, it might be hard to find it again, or your ticket, or your keys to the car, or even your wife or children in the dark. You know what I'm saying. On the space station, it's pretty easy to achieve that total darkness. All they have to do is point you in the right direction. So, like I say, spring busting out all over with all sorts of interesting things going on right now, and the April showers haven't even hit yet, or have they? Yeah, I guess some of the March showers were actually early April showers. But enough of that. One of the things we talk about a lot on these get-togethers we have is things that are going on TV, and particularly TV news, because I have a lot of complaints about them. I know some of you have plenty of complaints of your own too, but I think there are some things going on lately on TV that are kind of promising. The weathercasts that I've seen lately, not only, and this is mostly on my local channels, I don't watch the big weather stations, but on my local station, not only do they give you a 7-day forecast for so that you can plan your next soccer outing or something. But they also are beginning to tell you when to expect chemtrails to be sprayed over your home. And the thing about this is, just because you know the chemtrails are coming, you can't do very much about it. But I know there are a few people that actually enjoy the chemtrails. I mean, they can't afford to take their kids out to something exciting like the rodeo or the March Madness, so they they just get them out of the house to watch the chemtrails. So, for those people, I guess it's a plus, and for people like me who want to stay inside while they're spraying, that's also useful. Now, another complaint, you've heard me voice this complaint, almost every time we get together, and that's reporters who can no longer do investigative reporting. All they actually do is they are handed some kind of a story by, say, a Department of Defense guy or a Commerce Department guy or who wants something read on the news, and they read it. And sometimes I think they even know that the stuff they're reading is ridiculous. Well, one thing that they are doing now is wearing tinfoil hats. Tinfoil hats. Can we run? Yeah. Let's run. Anderson, on the basis of listening to all of my sources and doing some research on my own, I can tell you this is the most dangerous threat I have ever seen in my entire life since last week. So you see, when the guy reads a report with a tinfoil hat on his head, then he's pretty much telling you that he doesn't believe it either. And I think it's long since time that we took that approach, because most of the time you don't believe what they're saying, and you probably think that they don't believe it, but you can't ever tell with some of these reporters. So anyway, I'm sitting on the sidelines wondering if it's going to work out, and I've seen a lot of tinfoil hats this week, I have to tell you that. Another thing, especially on local news. Now, a lot of people don't like to see a bunch of tawdry is the word I was looking for. Tawdry stuff on their late night news, and other people do, because they don't have time to watch movies, but they like tawdry stuff. So a lot of stations now are giving you a sanitized version of a story on the local news, at 10 or 11 o'clock, but they're also sending you to the website so that you can watch the more salacious version. Now, that's a pretty darn good idea, because if you want to see something tawdry, now you have the option, and if you prefer the sanitized rendition, or, no traffic accidents and none of the shooting stuff, then you can just watch the minor league version of the news. So that's an interesting development. Now, I've also seen a whole lot more public service announcements lately, and generally I think it's good that a station has to have public service announcements as well as commercials, which you get pretty tired of, And so I usually watch them until I have them memorized, but a couple of them that are out there right now, let's be honest, they confuse me. I don't know if you've seen the one, well, I bet you have, the one about the white stuff. Here's what that looks like. Every day, millions of children go without cauliflower. Once the mainstay of the North American diet, it is now consumed almost exclusively by the wealthy in this country. In fact, if you're like most of us, your children have to get by on a diet consisting largely of cheeseburgers that they actually detest. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can make the wrong people happy simply by dressing up in a Santa Claus costume and singing folk songs from a long past era. If you want to know how you can help, why not contact More of the White Stuff at the number listed on your screen. You know what, folks? I have contacted More of the White Stuff because I didn't quite understand, and I thought there were some inconsistencies and inaccuracies in this little presentation. Now, sure, like everybody else, I recognize that cauliflower is getting expensive. You know, $75 for a small serving like that. So, in my household, we still want to have cauliflower. So, you know, we just have to make some adjustments in the budget. For example, we don't go out to see movies anymore. You know, we only go out to eat about once a month because we need that cauliflower, and and so we make a few, you know, sacrifices so that we can still get it. But you know, in my day, it wasn't really a mainstay of the diet, even when it was cheap. I think we used to only have it in my family growing up on the vernal equinox, and sometimes for Easter Sunday, I think we would have cauliflower, but it wasn't the mainstay of the diet. So I'm not sure what's up there. Once again, I have some of my staff is investigating what this is all about, because we think the money that you give More White Stuff is probably going somewhere else. And here's another one I don't get. This is one that's talking about rural adventurism. And even though I grew up in a small rural area, there was nothing adventurous about it. Have a look at this. By far, the biggest threat to rural adventurism is having a bunch of fancy buildings in big cities with fancy chairs that no one is sitting in. It makes us look like a nation of disinterested Plutarchs. But you can do something about it. Sit down and shut up. You know, I think that's got to be some sort of a coded message. I'm not sure who out there understands what this code means, but I've been in a lot of buildings with fancy chairs, and invariably people are sitting in them. Sometimes it's people who don't have fancy chairs in their own homes, so they just visit these modern buildings and go sit in the chairs for a while. I saw some earlier this week watching the March Madness games in these downtown buildings. But anyway, I'm still reading up on what rural adventures I may have missed when I was growing up. So that's all of that to say that there are some changes going on in TV news reporting, and they're intriguing. I mean, it shows that we have a moving target to look at, but I'm not sure if I feel any better or any safer ultimately as a result of it. And speaking of feeling safe, I guess we need to talk about national insecurity, because we always do. It's not national security anymore. Those kind of issues have given way to the big wave of national insecurity, where people worry about anything. They're worried about threats. They're worried about, well, I mean, just living in their own communities peacefully. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we had a story on the national news about Secret Service agents crashing into the White House. And my goodness, folks, I mean, a lot of these stories are certainly scary, except that they turn out not to be true. In this case, I think this is another thing that should have been categorized as college students on spring break, because apparently that's what it was. A couple of kids dressed up like Secret Service agents. Which is not to say that dangerous persons don't occasionally attempt to enter the White House. You heard about a similar story, about 6 months ago, and now we're hearing about it again. A guy named Rafael Edward Cruz is a dangerous man attempting to enter the White House, but in this case, he's doing it through a nominally acceptable practice, which is running for president. And Ted Cruz did announce this week that he's running for president. My goodness. He comes from Texas, so what that usually means is that about half of us here are excited and the other half of us are embarrassed. And you know which of those groups I'm in. Ted is not for everybody, and Ted's politics are not for everybody. As a matter of fact, he's pretty darn conservative, but it's not just that he's conservative, he's also almost overly aggressively anti-science. I mean, he's one of those, climate denier for one thing, but just generally anti-science in my book. And some people wonder how did a guy like this come to be thinking the way he does? Because, when a guy runs for president, people are going to psychoanalyze, and I'm going to help you psychoanalyze this guy. Because I know some of the things that he's been reading. We did a little, research. We checked his own personal library to see what makes him tick. One of the things I think he was strongly influenced by is that book by Nash Fume on Donut Science. Donut Science, which is about remaking the world with rooster money. I think rooster money is governing a whole lot of the things that are going on in the country today. I wouldn't say remaking it; they're attempting to remake it. But Donut Science, I wonder if Ted's been out on the beach with some of the college students planning science. Anyway, he's also, I know, been strongly influenced by a wise man whose name is Fender Worldview. Fender Worldview has written another important book, or important in some minds anyway, Money Talks and Science Listens. Now, he's talking about big money, of course, big money talk. I mean, he's not talking about spare change. He's talking about big corporate money, and so, for example, I know he's got a lot of nice things to say about fracking, how it will, how it'll restructure the earth, and he should be talking about earthquakes, but he's not, and he's talking about a lot of other pretty unscientific things, if you ask me. But one of the things that I think may have influenced Ted, and that most people don't know about, is actually a cookbook. It's a cookbook. It's called The Cuban-Canadian Candidate's Kooky Cookbook. And it's by the popular, in some quarters very popular, Beverly Moosepecker. She's written several other cookbooks. I mean, I have some of them, but some of the recipes in this book are pretty, I'm looking for the right adjective. They're pretty startling. Anyway, recipes that I haven't seen in any other cookbook, and recipes that probably have influenced the way Ted wants to govern, if that's what he wants to do, is govern. Because you see, I'm not going to be able to tell you how I got this, but I have a video of one of the commercials, campaign ads that Ted Cruz is working on right now. And I have the video. I don't have a video that has the audio on it, I know what is in their draft version of what they're going to say. You may have seen commercials on public service ads on some networks talking about the oceans and so forth, and the need to protect them. Well, Ted Cruz and his campaign are taking a different slant. So if we roll this video that we have been able to find, locate, acquire from their campaign, I can tell you basically what it's going to say. Do we have that video there? Hi, I'm River. Some people call me Old Man River, which is ridiculous because I'm only 14,000 years old. I used to be pretty clean, but now I'm full of sea otters. So there's no point in spending a whole bunch of money or having the EPA do a lot of work because I'm already filthy. It'll go something like that. So you see, what I'm saying is, that Ted is approaching everything from a completely different standpoint than most of us would, and not just conservative. So the question has been raised in some quarters about whether Ted Cruz is actually a natural-born citizen, because, you know, that's spelled out in the Constitution that to be president, that's what he's got to be, along with having been living here 14 years continuously and being of a certain age, etc., etc., etc. Now, you may recall in the past some similar discussions of whether somebody is qualified to run for president on the basis of being a citizen. John McCain, for example, he was born in the Canal Zone, you know, to his military parents. And there were questions raised when he ran for president about whether he was eligible. Fortunately for him, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama sponsored a bill in Congress that simply said John McCain is a natural-born citizen. Some of you may not know that long ago, when Barry Goldwater ran for president, Barry Goldwater was born in Arizona when it was still a territory. It wasn't even a state. And of course, Barack Obama, well, even though he was born in Honolulu, unless you're way off the map, which is in this country, and so he would be a natural-born citizen. And even if he hadn't been born in Honolulu, his mother was a natural-born citizen, and so that makes him one. So we had a lot of hubbub before, but now it's coming up again since Ted Cruz is wanting to be president. So I thought I would instruct you in some of the arcana around this. Most of you don't have time to read, you know, legal rulings that have an impact on this, but I do. I have time to read some of this stuff, and you know, it is generally understood that if your mama is a citizen, then so are you. But there are some exceptions to this general rule. For example, there's a case in the fifth, decided in the Fifth Circuit, Guitar City Motors versus Moosepecker. You probably don't know it, but let me give you the essence of this one. The court says, while the presence of a trapeze artist does not on its face demonstrate irregularity, it can be assumed that a natural environment does not include same. We affirm the lower court's ruling that Moosepecker is not a natural-born citizen. So that may have an impact. I don't know if there's been much research done yet to see whether there were any trapeze artists in the vicinity when Ted was born, but I'm sure that some enterprising reporters out there will get to it. Another case that may impinge on this issue, Snack Food Ministry versus Lucy the Sailor Enterprises. Now this opinion is unpublished at the present time, but I've got the advanced text. In this one, the court says, we agree that natural born is a term not well defined, Nonetheless, Canada is not where Americans are normally born, so we find appellant's claim deficient in establishing that Lucy is American first and Canadian only in showtime. Now, this is a case involving an entertainer, and so, I mean, it's not right on target, but it does have implications here. It does have implications. And interestingly, there's something else going on right now. This is going on in state court in Dallas. Right now, there's a case, Bruno Community College versus Bareback Yodelers. And in this case, among other things, the defense is alleging that a certain marine biologist eats 4 to 6 times a week at a Canadian food buffet, and so he can't be considered a true American. So even though it looks like a settled issue that Ted Cruz can run, I think we're going to see more of these discussions happening, and I don't know how they're going to turn out. I mean, I can tell you right now that that I'm interested in the outcome. If he does continue to pursue his race for the presidency, he has to overcome some obstacles. One is the fact that his poll numbers are not very good, and that's been widely reported. I mean, his appeal is, what can you say? It's pretty darn limited. However, as is usually the case with these presidential candidates, they say that their own internal polls show them doing a whole lot better than the polls that you're looking at. And guess what? Once again, this enterprising group of investigators that I call a staff has come up with something interesting, which is a confidential poll taken, or several polls actually taken, by the Cruz campaign. It's called 2016 Presidential Preferences. And let me explain, you've heard him say, you've heard him allege that actually we're doing better than the polls say because we are preferred in certain of these polls that I've taken. Well, it's a question of what question do you ask? It's a question of how you phrase the question. So, for example, and it's all right here in his internal documents, he went to the New Hampshire Association of Tire Changers, okay? And he asked this question: which do you prefer, having an army of fire ants in your pants for the next 4 years, or having Ted Cruz as president? And there was, in this case, there was a preference. It was slight. It was about 52 to 48 for having Ted Cruz as president. And then he went, that New Hampshire is an important state. He also went to Iowa. He checked in with the Iowa chapter of method actors who are also pipe fitters. And here they asked another question that I think is actually a leading question. Which do you prefer, having to live underwater in a pink bodysuit with George Zimmerman for the next 4 years, or having Ted Cruz as president? And, well, once again, he had a slight advantage in terms of that preference. Finally, he went to Scumbag, that is to say, South Carolina University for Men, Boys, and Girls, who incidentally was in the March Madness tournament we mentioned earlier. Here he asked a more legitimate question, which was, who do you prefer in the 2016 presidential race, Anna Nicole Smith or Ted Cruz? And a lot of people said Ted Cruz, but a surprising number of those people wanted to know if Anna Nicole Smith was still alive, because if she was, then they would change their vote. So you see, It's pretty complicated. Anyway, we've gone off on a tangent here because we're talking about national insecurities, and we were talking about one of the most dangerous threats to America there for a while. But before we leave this subject here of of national insecurity, there are heightened tensions in parts of the country because police and communities are mistrustful of one another, and you've probably heard proposals to have police wear body cameras. Okay, but that has only furthered another call for people having body cameras themselves. In other words, some people are proposing that everyone should be wearing a body camera, and of course that probably goes along fine with everything the National Security Agency wants to do, but I think it would, would really be the end result would be some kind of fashion war here of people designing the most attractive body camera for all of the people in the country who are going to be wearing it, and they'd mostly have to be unisex cameras, if you wanted to sell a lot of them. Anyway, People worry so much about their security these days. Me, I don't. I know some people have sophisticated, elaborate home alarm systems because they worry about either terrorists or just intruders coming into their private castles. Well, not me. I don't spend a whole lot of money needlessly. I think I may have told you before that I have a trained watchdog bird. So I think maybe watchbird would be what you call it. But my watchbird I've got some pictures of my watchbird in action here. He spends all day patrolling my huge country estate, and it's very inexpensive to have this kind of a surveillance bird work for you, because they just need a little seed now and then, the occasional special treat, but they don't have any complaints, and they don't even mind walking around like that all day long. They actually seem to enjoy it. So, having said that, national insecurity, since we cover so much, I want to make sure that on the program here we always have art and culture as part of our mix. So on the way out, I just want to say a few things to you about art and culture. Like me, I'm highly cultured and highly artistic. So I want to share with you what's on my, books, music, movies, you name it. Right now, I want to share what's on my reading list. I'm reading a very interesting book by Dr. Ramon Fleck right now, which is about dinner as class warfare. And I think a lot of you have secretly understood or suspected for a long time that dinner in a family setting, or in most of the settings that you've known, can be hostile, can be probative, can be injunctive, can be clairvoyant, but in any case, it can be a kind of class warfare. That's what I'm getting at. And not just dinner, but maybe even lunch, and not so much breakfast, because the dolphins don't even come out until lunchtime, generally speaking. But anyway, this book, Dinner as Class Warfare, has the subtitle, which is kind of strange, How Me Got Here and When the Next Train Leaves. And I think, although I didn't say so, this probably is another one that influenced Ted Cruz. As did, I remember from college, there was a book that probably influenced this book, and that one was one from Dr. Pons de la Hucci, Class Warfare is Dinner. And this one, interestingly, the subtitle here, it talks about the mysterious practices of the donut planters. Well, dadgummit. That's what I'm reading right now. As for music, well, Madonna's got a new CD out, and it's been some time. I understand that if you play this new Madonna record at very high speed backwards, that you hear well, somebody told me that it was dolphin yodeling. To me, it didn't sound like anything in particular, except that that it was definitely audible. You know, it's backwards and high speed, but it's audible. Something is going on in there. So I'm going to listen to it until I can figure out what she is actually saying. And then there's another musical project that really got my interest. Kanye West apparently has watched these new rodeo events we were talking about, and he has apparently been inspired by frog roping, the frog roping event, and has tried to capture some of the essence of that event in some new music. And I can't tell you how we got this, but I have a tape that, well, it comes from the studio where he's recording right now. I can't say how I got it, but this is going to be a sneak preview. You've never heard this anywhere else. This is what Kanye is working on right now. Hey, Frog. Y'all come on and get me now. Frog? Darn little squirming thing. Come on, Frog. Get with the program. You don't deserve this. I don't know if anybody deserves this, really. But having said that, it wouldn't be spring without some new movies, would it? And then there's two that I really want to catch. As soon as the basketball games are over, I'm running out to see these myself. One is the Attack on the Federal Reserve. That one I've been waiting for a long time. It stars Raphael Edward, and I think some of it was filmed right here in Texas and is based on a true incident. And then the other one that maybe will explain all of this this recent activity by the college students, to my satisfaction anyway, is the donuts at the end of town, because the subtitle says, "Now it can be told." And this one, of course, is highly intriguing to me because it's got music that was co-written by Beck and Kanye West, and it has that cookbook writer Beverly Moosepecker starring as Madonna. So how can you do better than that? I don't know. That's pretty tantalizing. Couple of blockbusters that I'm going to go see as soon as I have a little time. But as you can tell from what we've been discussing today, the staff and I have a whole lot to do. In the meantime, we have a whole lot of mysteries to unravel. And when we've unraveled them, I'll be back here to share the goods with you folks. So I hope you have a beautiful spring evening and a happy Easter, and we'll see you next time around. Bye for now. I went to Brazil just for the thrill. I saw a lot of Brazilians, thousands, possibly millions. I ignored the electric bill just for the thrill. When the lights went out in Georgia, my wife said, "Frank, I tried to warn you." My need for excitement was really compelling. I have other secrets I shouldn't be telling. I made a mountain out of a molehill just for the thrill. My psychiatrist was puzzled. He suggested I be muzzled. My need for excitement was really neurotic. He said I should dance with somebody exotic.